Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Good morning, my gorgeous friend. How are you this morning? I'm hoping you have had a fabulous weekend, lovely sleep last night, because that's what I've had, which is always wonderful. And I am, of course, joined by my beautiful, hopefully well-slept colleague, Dr. Mary. Hello, gorgeous woman. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm so excited to say that I am well slept. It's lovely. Little baby Max is sleeping through the night, and so am I. And I feel good. I feel rested. I feel happy. I feel healthy. And I'm very excited to talk about, I reckon, a topic that we get asked about possibly more than anything else. Yes, I reckon
Indeed, which is why it's why we thought we'd do a podcast on it, because honestly, this seems to cause considerable angst amongst our low carb real fooders. So we now are going to record this podcast, and we'll be able to refer you to it morning, noon and night whenever you want this fabulous question answered. So, Dr. Mary, without further ado, what is the question, the burning question on everyone's lips?
Milk. Milk. Milk, milk, milk. What milk can I have? What milk can't I have? What about this milk? What about the milk in my coffee? What about the milk in my tea? What about plant milk? What about skim milk? What about cream? Let's talk about milk.
Indeed. So the first thing is, as our, we coined the acronym LCRF, Low Carb Real Food, but honestly, we probably need to reverse it a little bit and go real food, low carb, because by far and away, the most important thing is real food first. And there are plenty of processed low carb products, so we're not interested in that. So the first thing to say that milk is, it's a complex topic because it seems obvious, but what the hell is milk?
Milk, yes.
These days.
Let's break it down. Let's start with good old dairy cow milk. What about full cream milk versus low-fat milk, dairy milk? Can I have it, Lucy?
Yes.
Is it low carb real food? And what should I know about full cream milk and skim milk?
Absolutely. So the first thing to know is that dairy milk, cow's milk, it's what we all, it's what milk used to be in the olden days. There was just milk and you didn't have to qualify it. But we now do, and there's some beautiful ad that used to be on with this older woman at a milk bar, and some dude would walk in and he'd go, "Can I have some milk?" And she'd go, and she'd rattle off this list of, low fat, high protein, low protein, plant milk, soy milk, which milk do you want? And he'd just go, "I just want milk that tastes like milk." So it is an interesting world to navigate, but let's just divide them into full cream milk, which is your standard milk, and low-fat milk or skim milk or skinny milk. And that's just milk where the fat has been removed from it. Now, this was done, again, back in the low-fat days because it was thought to be more healthy, that it would prevent heart disease. That was actually the premise, that saturated fat caused heart disease, therefore reduced saturated fat, reduced heart disease. That simplistic notion has been fairly well debunked, although the myth still lives on. The thing that happens when you remove the fat from the milk is you also take out quite a lot of the vitamins and quite a lot of the goodness that comes in it. So we need fat in our diet in order to absorb the vitamins. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. If you have a product that doesn't have any fat in it, then what is your fat-soluble vitamin sitting in? So it's helpful for many reasons. It's not a portion of the milk that's useless. And the fat within the milk also slows down its passage through our digestive system. So when we drink milk, it goes into our stomach and then it sits there. It's not like a fountain that just sort of moves on through. It sits there and the digestion process begins. So when you interfere with a food in its whole structure, you change the way it's digested. And I think that's really, that point has been missed for lots of people, including us, for a long time, that interfering with the structure of a food matters.
It does. So where does milk, so if we're doing whole milk, full cream milk here, sit within the real food, low carb sort of philosophy? Where do we put milk? So we're saying that full fat milk, like whole milk, is better than skim milk.
Yeah.
And where does it sit in low carb real food world?
So both the milks have about the same amount of carbohydrates. So when you look at the packet, it'll give you carbohydrates. And the carbohydrate in milk is lactose, which is, called milk sugar. Most people don't call it milk sugar. In fact, they just call it lactose, but it is. It's milk sugar. And lactose is a molecule made up of a molecule of glucose and a molecule of galactose joined together to form what's called a disaccharide. So two sugar units joined together, sort of disaccharide is sugars. So that makes sense. So the amount of sugar per 100 mils of milk is about 5 grams, 4.9 grams. So a bit over a teaspoon per 100 grams. So if you drink a cup of milk, then basically you've got the equivalent of about 2.5 teaspoons of milk sugar in that. It's not quite the same as table sugar because table sugar is a different disaccharide, but it's a similar process. So again, if you're drinking a splash, 2 tablespoons of milk in your coffee, well, that doesn't have that much sugar in it. But if you're drinking 600 mils of it, it does. It has a lot. And so in the low carb world, we recommend reducing milk or ditching it altogether if it feels like 20 mils is not useful. And I think what's happened is that, again, as coffee culture has changed, back in the olden days, you had your Nescafe and you had a tablespoon of that in some hot water with a splash of milk.
Yeah.
Well, not many people drink coffee like that these days. They drink it as a latte. So you have your shot and then it's topped up with a significant amount of milk, depending on the size of the cup. And you may have a significant number of those a day. And so you do end up consuming quite a lot of milk.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes trickier. And so a little workaround for that is you can get that same creaminess of a big latte with a splash of cream. So instead of having 150 mils of milk, you can have a splash of cream and you top it up with water and it gives you a similar creamy taste without the sugar load. And that's why that's, I think, the most confusing thing for people. How come I can have cream but I can't have milk? And again, as you know, you're the boss of you can do whatever you want. But if you want to know the effects on your metabolic health, your metabolic hormones, then you need to know this information and then you make a decision that you're happy with.
Yes, be empowered with the right information. You can drink as many lattes as you want, just understanding that the milk in those lattes is reasonably high in sugar, in carbohydrates. But we would say milk is a real food. It's just not necessarily a low carb real food. And so you can make your own decisions about where it fits in for you. Okay, but what about plant milk?
But I think it's also just, and again, just a little tip of the hat or a nod of the head to feeding families. It's initially, again, back in the 80s, everyone was recommended low fat. Then they changed the guidelines to suggest that children in particular should not be eating low fat people drinking low-fat milk, that they should be drinking regular milk because of the effects on the developing brain, on your fat-soluble vitamins. So, again, at Real Life Medicine, we just extend that to everybody. If you're going to drink milk, if you want to do a splash, pick the higher fat option. It's better.
Yeah. And with my metabolically healthy children, I'm quite happy for them to drink milk and to, just drink as much milk as they want, because it's a whole food. And that's philosophically how I feel. Okay. But
yeah.
So that's dairy milk, that's milk, and cream. What about plant milk? We get asked this a lot. So we're saying, okay, dairy milk, it's high in carbs. Just reading the labels, it seems that maybe almond milk is less high in carbs. Can I have as many almond milk lattes as I want? Is all almond milk okay? What advice and information have we got to empower people around plant milks?
Yeah, so I guess there's two sorts of people that might want to choose plant-based milks. One might be if you're philosophically opposed to using animal products, so maybe you're vegan, vegetarian, and so you prefer to use a plant-based milk. That's one person. But there's three groups now that I think about it. The second people are people who are allergic to cow's milk protein, and that's a significant number of people, including children. So obviously for you would not be recommending any milk of cream or any of that sort of stuff. And the third lot of people who are not necessarily allergic but potentially a bit intolerant. So maybe dairy products give them gut issues. And for some people, dairy products can be inflammatory. We know that dairy products are mucogenic. So if you get a lot of sinus, if you get asthma, sometimes avoiding dairy products can be helpful for that. The downside for all of those groups is that they miss the benefits of dairy, in particular your fat-soluble vitamins and calcium that comes as a natural part of dairy. So we need to be mindful of those. So having said that, people choose alternate milks. And the milk, I don't know if the milk is spelt with an I or a Y, because you see that around too, the MYLK. But if we want to look at an alternative, almond milk is absolutely probably the best, I would say, of the alternatives as far as a low carbohydrate product goes. Mez, we've had a look at the various milks, as you know. So I would like, if you wouldn't mind, sharing some of our philosophies on why the sorts of things we look for before we make a recommendation. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, all those plant-based milks out there, coconut milk, almond milk, nut milks, oat milk, rice milk, they're all fairly processed. Some of them are very processed, and they're not all created equal. There are some commercially available plant milks that are fine, all right, and there are some that are diabolical in terms of their ingredients and processing. So like with nut milks, how many plant milks are made is that the nuts are, if it's nuts or the grains, they're hyper processed, they are sort of smashed up, they're soaked, and then they are mixed in with oils, seed oils, emulsifiers and gums. Often they have added sugars or other artificial sweeteners sort of thrown in, and you can, depending on the brand and depending on the ingredients, get quite a toxic cocktail of ultra-processed inflammatory ingredients that are not good for you, or you can have a product that's not too bad. And so what you look for to exactly, and you want to go for the not too bad one for reference. I think we all would want that. So you've got to read the labels. You just got to take your glasses, your reading glasses, if you're me, to the supermarket, flip it over and read the ingredients. This is really important. And in an ideal world, if you're buying coconut milk, the ingredients would be coconut milk or coconuts, maybe some water as well. If it's almond milk, you really ideally you just want there to be almonds and water in there. Have a look. There are some that are much better than others, and it depends in which part of the world you are as to what are going to be good brands. But you're going to want to especially avoid seed oils, canola oil, sunflower seed oil. You're going to want to avoid sugar. You're going to want to avoid maltodextrin. Really go for as little ingredients as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I was doing a bit of research before this and looking through, and in general, the cheaper the product, the more likely it is processed. And it's tricky because I still get caught out on this, particularly if I'm ordering some stuff online that maybe I don't usually order. So the other day I did it with dips, and I was buying some dips for something or other, and I just went, oh, well, why would I pay $4 when I can get it for $2? And then when I got the $2 one, I go, oh, that's why it's $2, because it's full of processed gunk.
Nuts.
And it's the same with the milk. So interestingly, across the board, soy milk seems to have, I couldn't find any brand in Australia of soy milk that didn't contain canola oil or emulsifiers. So soy milk is, it's highly processed. So it's not just some soybeans soaked in water or mushed up soybeans soaked in water, because they need to process them intensely in order for that to happen. It's also that it's pretty low in protein, because basically it's not, it sounds like when you look at it, it sort of looks like a product that would be wholesome, because it kind of looks a bit like milk, except that it's not really. Like, it's nothing like milk. When they've not added the emulsifiers, you will find that it looks more like what it sort of is, which is the say like almond milk. The almond milk sediment will sit down the bottom, and then the rest is water. So the first ingredient in most of these plant milks will be water, then the number of percentage. So again, across almond milks, it ranged from 6% to 1% of almonds in the milk. And the best one that I found was a brand that was called Just Almond Milk, which I thought was a good name, until I went to the Just Oat Milk, which isn't just oats and water. So the almond milk was almonds, water and salt, but the Just Oats wasn't. It was water, oats, canola oil, salt.
You have to read the labels.
Yeah, you do. You have to read the labels. It's much better to have a product that you have to shake, okay, because that means it doesn't have emulsifiers in it. It's much better to have a product that maybe sticks together every now and then, because that means it doesn't have anti-caking agents in it. It's much better to have something with very few ingredients. So, yeah, read your labels and buy the best quality thing that you can afford. Obviously, we don't want to bankrupt people, and I'm very well aware that with privilege comes choice. So if you're financially able to have that choice, then you are very advantaged, and not everyone has that privilege. But whatever you can, the best, generally, and again, it's not a blanket rule, but generally the cheaper the product, the nastier the ingredients.
Yeah. That's like the real food aspect of looking at these plant milks. Then the other layer is the sugar content or carbohydrate content. And certainly many of them will have added sugars. But if you're getting unsweetened plant milks, then generally speaking, the least sugary ones are going to be your almond milk and your coconut milk. And with coconut milk, there is a reasonably cheap alternative for most people, which is canned coconut milk. Yes, you're going to have to shake it. It separates, the watery content separates from the fatty content. It comes in a can, so it's not super convenient. After you've opened it, you need to then decant it to some other storage container and keep it in your fridge. But it's generally fairly cheap and is a pretty low processed plant milk that you buy, and it's generally just got coconuts in it.
Yeah, and I think looking at the range of alternate milks available, we would generally recommend almond milk as long as it's a low processed one, and coconut milk for the carbohydrate component. The others, rice milk, oat milk, soy milk, in general, are really high in carbohydrates, particularly oat milk. Like it's buckets of sugar in it. And when you think about it, well, of course it is, because what is it? It's just oats, which are essentially a carbohydrate, soaked, and it's the swill, the watery goop.
Yeah.
Once you drain the oats out, is the milk. So yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? That a grain milk, rice milk, they're going to be high. So yeah, I reckon if you don't tolerate dairy, if for whatever reason you don't want to eat or don't eat dairy, then almond milk or coconut milk. Coconut milk is the only thing with coconut milk. It's a coconut taste, like it's pretty pungent. So it's about adapting your tastes. Your coffee is not going to taste the same with coconut milk as it will with almond milk or with milk.
And you can also change your habits and go for black coffee, black tea. See how that works out for you as well. But milk. Final point we didn't mention: lactose-free milk has just as much sugar. It's just that the sugar content has been altered, but it's still just as sugary. I'm adding that in.
Yeah, and I think that's important because a lot of people do think lactose-free means it's sugar-free, but what happens for people that are lactose intolerant, what they lack the enzyme, or they have a reduced amount of enzyme that cleaves those two sugary molecules. So I mentioned glucose and galactose are joined together, and we have the lactase enzyme that splits them apart so that we can digest them. For people that lack that enzyme, you don't digest the disaccharide, and when we don't digest it, we can get gut pain or diarrhea, and that's a common phenomenon. So all the lactose-free milk does is it adds that enzyme in. So it's the same amount, still the same carbohydrate, still the same glucose. Galactose is actually just broken down to glucose eventually anyway, so it's exactly the same.
Yes. I reckon that we've answered our most common questions on milk. Dr. Lucy, what do you think?
Indeed. Absolutely. So, lovelies, again, you're the bosses of you. You get to choose your own adventure with the full knowledge that ideally real food first. If you're insulin resistant, as most of us are in our particularly older years, or then choose a low carbohydrate version. If you don't tolerate dairy, you can use a plant version, and there are recommendations.
Lovely. All right, gorgeous people, go off, enjoy your hot beverages, empowered with the right knowledge, and we'll see you again soon.
Indeed. Bye for now. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.